Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
The drive-by media, the legacy media, the mainstream media, the Democrat Party all said that it was not possible for economic growth to ever be above the best it was under Obama, which was 1.8 to 2%. Obama had one outlier quarter, a little over 3, but that were extraneous circumstances there. Obama's GDP averaged 1.8 to 2% on the upside. And everybody said it can't possibly get any better than that, and it's foolish to think so. It's a new day in America, and those days of rabid capitalistic economic growth are over. Just like Obama and the media said, the jobs that we've lost, manufacturing otherwise, would never, ever be coming back. Obama goes out to Elkhart, Indiana, telling people in the campaign year of 2016 not to think of their jobs coming back, that Trump's lying to them about it, asking, what's he going to do? Wave a magic wand. What's the policy? How's he going to do it? It ain't going to happen. I don't want all of you false hopes out here. Well, we got an economic growth now sustained at 4.2% and climbing. The stock market's approaching a new record high because Donaldus Trump, last night, the deadline that he had set, we have a new trade deal with Canada to be added into the deal already reached with Mexico. It is what gets rid of NAFTA, just as he said he would do, just as he promised on the campaign trail. The new name of this thing is the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Trump has been speaking about this for the last half hour outside the Oval Office, and he's in a fine, fine mood, as is everybody gathered there. It is a major, major achievement. Again, it is something that the Democrat opposition, which includes, of course, the media, all said could not happen. It couldn't be done. It was a waste of time to try. As they said, scratching their heads, why does Trump care about trade deals anyway? And they've never understood the Trump voter caring about trade deals. They've never understood the connection Trump made and maintains with voters on trade. And it's not just NAFTA, it's any number of other things. Jared Kushner has come in for a lot of credit on this deal, which means he's going to be in the crosshairs right along with Brett Kavanaugh, about whom we will get to in due course. But the NAFTA news is going to be buried, which is one of the reasons why Trump is spending so much time talking about it, giving the drive-by media a tough time in ignoring it. But for Trump, it's electoral politics in addition to making America great again, as he defines it. Something he promised, something he claimed could be done, that would be done, and it has been done. And it is to the benefit of people that voted for it. It's to the benefit of millions and millions of Americans in countless numbers of ways. And he's making sure that as many people as possible are made aware of this. It had to kill the Washington Post to write about this. Headline, Canada agrees to join trade accord with U.S. and Mexico, sending new NAFTA deal to Congress. So we're renegotiating NAFTA. Canada, which said they wanted no part of it. They asked in at the last moment, hey, don't forget us. Can we be part of this too? Trump said, come on in. A reporter just asked Trump, does this mean the end of tariffs? Trump said, hell no, it doesn't mean the end of tariffs. If the European Union continues to send unfair trade deal-related products into the United States, we're going to slap tariffs on them. Remember how the drive-bys and the Democrats said that slapping tariffs on Chinese goods was going to provoke the Chi-Coms? It couldn't possibly be good. It might mean the end of whatever arrangement we're making with the North Koreans. It might destroy existing good relations with the Chi-Coms. Breaking news, China to cut import tariffs on wide range of products. China
The Chicoms will cut import tariffs on textile products and metals, including steel products, to 8.4%, down from 11.5%, effective November 1st, according to the Chicom Finance Ministry yesterday. The Chicoms have pledged to take steps to increase imports. That means products from us this year amid rising tension with some of its biggest trading partners, such as the United States. Bottom line, Trump said he was going to do X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C in trade. And if we started A, B, and C, I think he's pretty much closing in on C. He has rebuilt the economy. He has created new jobs. His economic policies have. The elimination of onerous regulations, which is an ongoing thing, continues to show vast benefits for every ordinary American who makes this country work. And it's something he said could be done, that only he could do. And in fact, he was the only one that thought it was necessary to do. And it's now done. Here is the president today at the White House Rose Garden. We have 3 sound bites.
I have long contended that NAFTA was perhaps the worst trade deal ever made. Since NAFTA's adoption, the United States racked up trade deficits totaling more than $2 trillion, and it's a much higher number than that. With Canada and Mexico, it lost vast amounts of money and lost 4.1 million manufacturing jobs and 1 in 4 auto jobs. Lost about 25% of our auto jobs, even more than that. Throughout the campaign, I promised to renegotiate NAFTA, and today we have kept that promise.
For the last half hour, the president, maybe even longer than that, maybe 45 minutes, an extended statement. Only recently started taking questions. But I'll tell you what Trump was doing here, which is something that I've long advocated. He wasn't just announcing the deal got done. He was teaching why it was important, including to the drive-by media, who, for the most part, are clueless, don't understand capitalism, think that it's a big, bad meanie. And Trump is taking the occasion of all this attention to actually explain how trade works and how the United States has been victimized over the course of many, many years because of American leadership believing, well, you know, we're the superpower in the world. We're the richest. We can afford to take it in the shorts now and then if it promotes good relations with our allies. And Trump stood up and said, there's no reason we should have our back pockets picketed. There's no reason that we should just let people have whatever they want from our treasury. There's no reason we should feel guilty about being powerful and wealthy. It doesn't mean that because we are so much wealthier and powerful that those who are not have dibs on what we've produced. Those days are over. That way of thinking is over. And he went through the whole process of explaining how trade works, why it is important, how the United States was getting the shaft, but more importantly, why it matters to ordinary, everyday people and their jobs and their careers, including farmers and a number of other type people about whom Washington thinks not very often and thinks very little. It's been a masterful performance. There is no question that Trump not only knows what he's talking about, he is the architect of what he's talking about, and he can run rings around people in discussing the process and in discussing the substance and the details of this new agreement. It puts anybody else that's ever tried this to shame. Everybody that has the chance to listen to this is going to understand exactly why it was important, what happened, why it happened, and why we benefit, and why that's good. And, you know, teaching as well as announcing is fundamental. I believe that's why the Republican Congress in 1994 actually squandered its majority after a while. It's because they stopped teaching what they were doing and why as they did it. They made the fatal mistake of believing that the Republican victory in 1994 meant somehow that a majority of the country had overnight turned conservative. And so when they began to announce this cut, this reform, that reform, a lot of people didn't know what they were talking about, got scared to death. That lesson has been learned by none other than Donald Trump. Here's the next bite. Trump saying it is a privilege to trade with us. This kind of thinking we haven't seen. We've seen thinking in both parties who believe that it's up to us to earn the respect of others. It's up to us to show them that we don't intend them any harm. It's up to us. And Trump's turning this 180 degrees around. It's a privilege to trade with us. We're the world economy. We're the future of the world economy. We're the future of world freedom and liberty. So the days of the America as the world's piggy bank are over.
This deal will also impose new standards requiring at least 75% of every automobile to be made in North America in order to qualify for the privilege of free access to our markets. It's a privilege for them to do business with us. And I'm not talking about Mexico. I'm talking about everybody. Everybody. It's a privilege for China to do business with us. It's a privilege for the European Union, who has treated us very badly, but that's coming along, to do business with us. Japan, every country. It's a privilege for them to come in and attack the piggy bank.
Yeah, it's a privilege to come in now. And as I say, it's a new way of seeing ourselves and our country without the need to make excuses, without the need to apologize. We really have it. You can see evidence and signs of this in our own culture. The achieved and the accomplished somehow feel the need to apologize for it or to downplay it as some sort of new definition of humility, rather than having it used as a teachable moment, as something inspiring. As Trump points out, we want every country making their country great. We want every country putting their country first. We want everybody doing it that way. That's the whole point, for everybody to do better, but not by piggy banking the United States, by doing it on their own. These kinds of things are just, they're foreign to United Nations types, diplomatic types. Here's the final bite. Don't forget who told you this was not possible. Do not forget, it was Barack Hussein O. who said none of this could be done.
If you remember, the previous administration said we're not going to have manufacturing jobs anymore, essentially. We're not going to make things anymore? No, just the opposite. Going to be a manufacturing powerhouse and allow us to reclaim a supply chain that has been offshored to the world because of unfair trade issues.
So there you have it. It's not a sexy subject. NAFTA never was. I mean, it commanded a lot of attention. It was very controversial when it was ratified in the early into the mid 1990s. But in terms of being a subject that if cable news announced they're going to do 2 or 3 panels tonight on NAFTA to do a trade deal, they're not going to have a lot of people tune in. It's just the way of the world. So Trump is making sure with this extended event in the Rose Garden today that people get its importance. In terms of its importance as an election issue, it's crucial. It is, I wouldn't say crucial, but it's very important in terms of Trump being able to say to his voters, stick with me. I told you I was going to do this. I told you it could be done, and I told you the United States was going to come out as the champion in the subject of world trade. Don't doubt me. And in that sense, it's confidence inspiring that Trump, left alone in the Oval Office, free and clear to be who he is, will mean a bunch of great things happening for the country. And this can be parlayed into any number of campaign ads for the upcoming midterms, because it's going to be about a lot of things, not just the Kavanaugh nomination and other things. This is going to be a fundamental aspect in terms of turning out the Trump base. Now, the drive-bys, there was Trump had a simple ask here, no questions about Kavanaugh during the NAFTA thing, and an infobabe from the drive-by media persisted in trying to start questions about Kavanaugh, which has led to a discussion about it. Trump now talking about the FBI investigation, and I have to, I'm jumping the gun a little bit on this comment, but from Friday afternoon, the minute The minute we learned that the FBI was going to be called on to do another week's worth of investigating, it was abundantly clear to me what all of this is. And it's simply about one word, folks. It's about delay. Delay and delay, and with each new revelation, the need to continue to delay. It's secondarily about Kavanaugh, that, they're still targeting Kavanaugh for total nuclear destruction. That's part and parcel of this, too. But the way it worked, very simple. You have Jeff Flake saying if he and Coons have struck a deal, there's to be a 1-week FBI investigation of the claims made by Christine Ballsy Ford. Never mind the fact that she doesn't have any evidence to back up her claim. Never mind that she is not credible. It's another thing that's grating on me, hearing everybody in the drive-by media talk about she's credible, a credible allegation. No, it's not credible. But she's being automatically assumed and described as credible, and of course Kavanaugh is not. Kavanaugh is not credible. She is. She has no evidence to back this up or corroboration at all. So the FBI says, okay, we'll do this for a week. And immediately, before sundown on Friday, a bunch of Democrats were, a week isn't long enough. It's silly to limit this. Then Trump, right on cue, said, I haven't limited the FBI. NBC is lying about it. I haven't limited the FBI in their scope. Meaning now Trump's on record, and everybody is, and if this thing needs to go beyond a week, well, it's going to go beyond a week. And I guarantee you that is the objective here. And that's why new allegations about Kavanaugh being a wild, violent drunk, need to trace that down. Kavanaugh may be having committed perjury about his calendars and stuff. Well, we got to track that down. Kavanaugh may not have the temperament to be on the court, given how enraged and angry he was during his testimony at the Judiciary Committee. We got to track that down. It's delay, and it's going to be tougher and tougher and tougher to hold of this Friday vote. Some people are going to, and the Republican side are going to have to get some steel for a backbone and shut this down at some point. Or it's just going to continue to be delayed. So the drive-bys wanted to talk to Trump about Kavanaugh, and he decided to go there, and he just eviscerated Richard Blumenthal and Cory Booker and Dianne Feinstein, and basically told the media that as far as he's concerned, they are the Democrat Party too. He talked about Blumenthal lying for years about having served in Vietnam when he had never even been to the country, served with valor as a Marine. He said, this guy, a serial liar on his own resume, is questioning Brett Kavanaugh. And he went on to talk about Cory Booker, who has admitted to fondling women that, by the way, that was an attempt to cleanse himself, to show that he has reformed when he did it. When I accused Feinstein, sort of quasi-accused her of leaking the Christine Ballsy Ford letter. He did this Saturday night at West Virginia, and it was hilarious the way he thinks he knows that Dianne Feinstein leaked. I don't have time to explain it. I'm going to have to show, for those of you watching on the Ditto Cam, I'll do my best to show you what Trump did. He imitated Feinstein when the whole question of leaking came up. And he's now they're asking, if it's proven that Kavanaugh was a drunk in high school, does that mean you'll pull the nomination? And Trump is talking to them about that. So we'll keep going here. Hang on. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Great to have you here. Telephone number, we'll get to your calls in due course, 800-282-2882. So the president continues to take questions in the Rose Garden from drive-by media. I would jip it, but there are things I want to get to here. And I can just as easily relay what the president said. He's just laying the Democrats out. He's laying them out for the lying tricksters and skunks that they are. He is linking the media to the Democrat Party, which we do it all the time here, but you don't really hear the president make it that direct and obvious. He has just eviscerated the credibility of all of these accusing Democrats, from Cory Spartacus Booker to Richard Blumenthal to Dianne Feinstein. And what he did with Feinstein, if you'll recall, toward the tail end of the hearing on Friday, before the vote came, somebody raised the question of how in the world did Christine Blasey Ford's letter to Dianne Feinstein leak? Because we are made to understand that the letter said that she didn't want anybody to know her name and that she didn't want to come forward, yet the woman had written the Washington Post. She'd called the Washington Post tip line, the New York Times. She has an op-ed published in the Washington Post. But all along we're told she didn't want to go public. So people were trying to claim, for all this talk about what Kavanaugh's done to this poor woman, it's the Democrat Party and the Democrats on this committee that have put her through this emotional ringer. It's so unfair and such spotlights. And it became obvious that there could be only 3 sources for the leak because of limited possession of the letter. One would be Senator Feinstein and or her staff. The other would have to be somebody in the media or the lawyers for Christine Blasey Ford who had seen the letter. And so some senators began to say that it could well be Senator Feinstein, and she sat there and fumed while this was happening. And as all the other possibilities were mentioned, she eventually asked for a point of order to Chairman Grassley and said, Chairman Grassley, I need to react. I need to respond to this outrageous allegation that I or my staff have leaked this letter. Just for the record, I just asked my staff if any of them leaked it, and they have assured me that they didn't. But what we saw when she was doing, she turned around to her staff sitting behind her. And she starts mouthing. We can't hear what she's saying because it's off mic. But she's obviously asking them, did anybody here leak it? She turns around, did you leak it? Did you leak it? She turns back to the camera. We didn't leak it. Mr. Chairman, we didn't leak it. And Trump made fun of this and mocked it in his West Virginia appearance on Saturday night by saying, is this how we're going to determine who leaked something? She gets to turn to her staff and ask them, and they deny it, and that's it? Meanwhile, Kavanaugh sits over here and has to undergo his 7th FBI background check. His accuser has no corroboration and no evidence, and he's presumed to have done it. And Dianne Feinstein gets to turn around and ask her staff, hey, did any of you leak this letter? And they say, no, was it us? She turns back around and says, we didn't do it, Mr. Chairman. As though case closed, it wasn't us. They had to have done it. It was strategic. Just like what happened on Friday was strategic. Ladies and gentlemen, I became aware yesterday of a transcript of a conference call that occurred last week among and between Democrat activists who were planning exactly what happened on Friday. It's laid out in this thing. Now, unfortunately, I can't reproduce this and put it at rushlimbaugh.com because I don't legally have it. But I've got it. I'm not going to mention any names, but the names of the Democrat front groups and organizations are here and the strategies that they used. And it makes it crystal clear that they were going to target Jeff Flake, that he was seen as the most malleable and the easiest to intimidate. The elevator incident, where it just happened that 2 nearly insane anti-Kavanaugh, pro-Democrat activists ended up there in Flake's elevator with a CNN camera right there to catch what happened, and they started shouting, and they started accusing, and they started pointing fingers. He got scared to death. It was all part of the strategy to turn him. And there was a 3-point strategy. The Flake strategy was number 3 if the other 2 had bombed out. And they pulled it off. They did it. John Fund has a piece today at National Review. Who was behind the Flake setup? Acorn's tactics live on in the senator's elevator confrontation with activists from a George Soros-backed group. On Friday morning, two women raced past reporters and security officers and blocked the senator's only elevator in the Capitol. They cornered Jeff Flake, who had just announced he was going to vote yes. This is in the morning. It's before the hearing began. It was on his way to the hearing. They cornered Flake, who had just announced in a Republican caucus he was going to vote yes on Kavanaugh, out of the committee and onto the Senate floor, full debate. The women would not let Flake leave the elevator until they had yelled at him face to face for several minutes. You could see him wilting, shrinking, shaking. The CNN camera happened to be there to broadcast the whole thing live, and from there it went viral. There's no doubt that CNN was in on this ambush. The ambush was planned. Jeff Flake was targeted as one of the 3 points of a strategy that the left-wing activist groups, there might have been 7 or 8 of them on this conference call. The two women were Anna Maria Archila and Maggie Gallagher. The two women who confronted Flake inside the elevator, perhaps because the women expressed such raw emotion, few media outlets dug into their political activism. They didn't want to dig into their political activism. They wanted to portray them as average, ordinary American women who just happened to get into the building. They didn't want anybody to know they were Democrat activists. They knew they were Democrat activists. CNN knew this. Look, everybody's in on this. This whole thing is a gigantic setup. The Democrats don't care about another FBI investigation. That's just a trick for more delay. Kavanaugh's already undergone 6. You think 6 background checks on Kavanaugh missed the fact that he was such a drunk he beat people up, which is the latest allegation from somebody who knew him at Yale? Guy's now a professor in North Carolina, has a piece in the Raleigh News and Observer that Kavanaugh got belligerently drunk. And he's seen it. Well, nobody has any information on Kavanaugh and his drinking in the last 20 years. All that happened was that Kavanaugh ended up number 1 in his class in high school, in college, and in law school. Somebody so drunk, so sloppy, planning his next gang rape. I'll guarantee you that kind of person does not become number 1 in anything decent. But Kavanaugh was. He was number 1 in his class in high school and college and the law school. Kavanaugh has achievements that 90% of us wouldn't even bother to dream about. They are so daunting. Most of us wouldn't even attempt them. They have to go back to high school, have to go back to college to find evidence of binge drinking. You do that, you're going to find binge drinking on the part of a lot of people. You're going to find evidence like that today because don't you know, ladies and gentlemen, don't you know the stress of life in America is so bad? It's so horrible that there's all kinds of self-medication going on. All kinds of people are drinking. And they make excuses for them because the pressure is so intense. But you don't find anybody testifying that Kavanaugh's been a fall down, beat 'em up drunk the last 25 or 30 years, do you? Or even beyond that. Next, they said he may have committed perjury if he lied about the people on that calendar entry, if he lied about what those terms mean. If he's committed perjury, he is gone. We need the FBI to look into that. We need the FBI to look into whether or not he beats people up on Yale's campus. And we need to really track down this judicial temperament of his. Why? You see the way he acted on our committee hearing on Friday? He was yelling and screaming. That's not the kind of temperament we want from a judge. Well, my buddy Andy McCarthy makes a great point. If you want to test, if you want to see Kavanaugh's judicial temperament, there's a place you can go. And it is called the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where Kavanaugh has been serving for years. And all you have to do is go there and study his work. And then to the courts prior to that, where he was a judge. All of this is delay, delay, delay. They hope to find new women, drag new women out with new allegations. They hope to come up with new charges. The minute additional 1 week FBI investigation was agreed to, the Democrats started saying 1 week isn't going to be enough. We can't. Well, a weekend was enough for thousands and hundreds of thousands of Hillary Clinton emails. James Comey's even gotten in on this. James Comey now making no doubt about his partisanship in this and his never Trump, anti-Trump status, which is what all of this really is. If you boil all this down, what this is, folks, hatred for Donald Trump by the Washington establishment, by the American left, and by the media. Unadulterated, undiluted, raw, poisonous hatred. Brett Kavanaugh is going to be destroyed in the process of damaging and getting rid of Donald Trump. They want to delay this beyond the midterms because they are convinced they're going to win. And when they win the Senate, House and Senate, they can impeach Trump and they can paralyze the rest of his administration. And if Kavanaugh would happen to get in the court, they're going to impeach him too. Gerald Nadler, who runs the Judiciary Committee for the Democrats in the House. He's not even the chairman. He's the ranking member, and he's already promising to impeach Kavanaugh for perjury and whatever else that has occurred so far if the Democrats win the House. They can't stand it. They cannot stand it Donald Trump is president. They cannot stand it Donald Trump is putting a tremendous, absolutely great human being and conservative on the Supreme Court. It's driving them hysterically crazy. And so all of this, all these new charges, all these new suggestions for investigation, all these calls for more time, all it is delay. The next time you hear Kavanaugh is reportedly very frequently in college have gotten drunk and hit people in the face, substitute one word for that: delay. This is all about continuing to delay it, which is why it is as it has always been. At some point, the Republicans are going to have to shut this down and call for a vote. Now, is anybody else like me concerned? I mean, the FBI leadership, many of them are gone, but a lot are still there, has done its level best to screw Donald Trump. Working with the intelligence agencies, we had that cabal conducting a silent coup to get rid of Trump during the campaign and then destroy his transition, and they have been trying to destroy his presidency with his phony Russia collusion, the Mueller investigation, and all that. Now that same agency, with James Comey with an email now encouraging them to dig deep, keep digging, Comey says there's got to be something there. The same guy that exonerated Hillary Clinton without even an interview, the same guy that said they found new questionable emails on the laptop of Carlos Danger and in a matter of 3 days reviewed 100,000 of them to find there was nothing there. So they can do whatever they're going to do in a day or two if they want to. But then what happens if the FBI looks into all of this and reports? By the way, they reach no conclusions. And if they do, then we'll know a lot. But if in the 302s, the forms and the results of interviews, if they produce no evidence for Christine Ballsy Ford, if they produce no evidence for any other allegation, if they cannot produce anything that says Kavanaugh did it, whatever it is. In other words, if this investigation clears Kavanaugh like every FBI investigation heretofore has, you think the Democrats can say, oh, okay, well, good. We got our week. Now we can vote. You think that's what's going to be the case? Hell no. They're going to say the investigation is not thorough. The investigation was stilted by Trump. The investigation was cheating. The investigation was not long enough. Whatever. They're not going to accept anything here. At some point, they're going to have to be treated as the minority they are, and all of this just shut down and vote. There is some interesting polling data on Kavanaugh from Mark Penn, who runs the polling unit at Harvard University. There's also Jeff Flake. Molly Hemingway at The Federalist says that Flake said that he is a yes vote on Kavanaugh. pending the FBI review to allay others' concerns. So unless Kavanaugh is revealed to be some serial rapist who hid successfully in 6 previous background checks, Flake is a yes. Can we trust Flake? He said he was a yes last Friday, too, and look where we are. The views expressed by the host on this program documented to be almost always right, 99.8% of the time. A thrill and a delight to be with you each and every day here behind the golden EIB microphone where I, El Rushbo, serve as America's real anchorman, truth detector, and doctor of democracy. Okay, I mentioned here that we have a poll here from Mark Penn. And the headline of the piece, it's an op-ed that he's written at thehill.com, Kavanaugh polling, FBI on the hot seat. Upshot of this is, Americans believe Christine Ballsy Ford. And most also believe Brett Kavanaugh. If the FBI finds no corroboration of the charge, and there won't be any corroboration of the charges, unless somebody does what this whole thing has been from the get-go and makes it up. I put nothing past the Democrats. Everything that we saw on Friday was orchestrated. It was the biggest mistake in the world, and maybe it's Senate tradition. I don't know. I haven't seen enough committee hearings. I don't know if on the day of a committee vote on anything, every senator gets to speechify, and that takes 4 hours. The Judiciary Committee meeting was scheduled for 9:30. Everybody thought that was the vote. But no, Grassley announced the Democrats wanted to speak, and they did, and they all kept harping on an FBI investigation. This wasn't fair. And we know what happened, and at one point, Flake disappears. Nobody knows where he went after he was harassed by a bunch of political activists in a CNN camera in an elevator, the Senate office building. The whole thing was orchestrated and pulled off. And I think the Republicans know all of this. I think the Republicans are not dumb. The Republicans are not blind. It's too many years of watching how the Democrats operate not to know something was coming. There just wasn't the will to stop it. Because the Republicans need to be seen bending over every which way possible to accommodate the credible testimony of Christine Ballsy Ford. It was not credible. It isn't credible today. How does this work? Any woman comes forth, says anything she wants, it's automatically credible. The accused who denies it is not credible. The fix is in from the get-go on all of this. She doesn't know. By the way, the Rachel Mitchell, the Republican sex crimes prosecutor from Arizona that they hired to question Ballsy Ford on Thursday, whenever it was, has put together her review of Christine Ballsy Ford, and it's devastating. It is documented devastating. She has no reason to be believed. She can offer no reason. She doesn't even offer consistency. There's even a little story that's developed about her use of Safeway, that she shopped in Safeway a lot. And that was new. And the reason, the theory behind that is Mark Judge wrote a book as part of his therapy for alcohol and drug abuse. He was told to write a book. It was supposed to be a fictional book. It was an aid and an attempt to help him through his problems. It was not a memoir. And in this book, it talks about Safeway a lot. And he works there, did work there. So she automatically places herself at a Safeway where he is. Rachel Mitchell found this highly suspicious and, like much else that she said, impossible to prove. Her report, I mean, I printed it out. It's like 6 pages here. It is devastating. The inconsistencies in her stories, the variables in her story, the fact that none of the stuff that matters can be proven, the fact that the people she said in the room, the number kept changing from the original letter to subsequent interviews and then to the testimony she had. The idea that she was afraid to fly, and yet here she is vacationing all over the world. How did she get there? The idea that she refused to talk to the committee, even in California. We learned that she didn't even know the committee had offered to fly out there because her lawyers didn't tell her. By the way, a couple of Republicans are now demanding an investigation. Tom Cotton says we're going to investigate Feinstein. We're going to investigate this leak, and we're going to investigate these lawyers who may not have told her that the committee was willing to go out there because they believed that she was afraid to fly. None of this was true. So the idea that she is the last, she's the least credible witness in all of this, and yet there she is automatically said to be credible. Every leftist supposedly reviewing her performance, I found her credible. Based on what? She was in such pain. She was so still shaken by what happened all of those years ago. You could say, yeah, because she really knew how to make it look like that. I don't think any of this has been genuine. I think it's all orchestrated. I think a lot of it's focus grouped. I think it's scripted. And because none of this passes any kind of a smell test. But anyway, back to Mark Pence poll, very quickly. Americans believe her, and most believe Kavanaugh. If the FBI finds no corroboration of the charges, 60% believe Kavanaugh should be confirmed, according to a weekend Harvard-Harris poll of 1,330 registered voters. 66% of Americans support the decision to have the FBI investigate. That includes 80% Democrats, 69% independents, but only 45% Republicans, who are the smart ones. Huge numbers in the weekend poll reported seeing parts of it or reading about it. 40% thought she alone was credible. 23% thought Kavanaugh was. 27% said both were believable. If you combine all that, the poll findings indicate 67% found her credible and 50% found him to be. But the credibility of their testimony doesn't appear to be the decisive factor. Instead, the question comes down to corroboration as the standard for tipping public opinion on whether Kavanaugh should ascend to the high court. In terms of the overall needle, after the testimony was heard, 37% say confirm the nomination, 44% say rejected, 18% remain undecided, with Democrats going one way, Republicans the other. But, hang on, don't get depressed. Once the voters are told that the named witnesses deny any knowledge of the allegation, it shifts from 44% to 57% in favor of confirmation. Meaning the people in this poll did not know, many of them did not know that the people she places in the room have denied being there. And when the pollsters told them that fact, the numbers of people who thought he should be confirmed jumped from 44 to 57%, and then up to 60%. In a hypothetical question, if the FBI, after a week, agrees there's no corroboration for her story, and they've already done that, but now we've got Comey entering the picture. Now we got Comey urging the FBI to keep digging. The same FBI that's been running a silent coup, FBI leaders trying to get rid of Trump. I want to grab a phone call because this guy has a great point, and I want to add something to it. This is Jason, Muskegon, Michigan. Jason, thank you so much for waiting. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
No problem. Thanks for letting me be part of the excellence.
Well, I appreciate that. You are. You are here as part of the excellence by association.
Yeah, I was thinking that there's no better way to motivate a group by attacking them, and by attacking Kavanaugh, they're basically essentially attacking the entire Republican base. We showed up in 2016 and voted Trump in. Part of that reason was for the Supreme Court nomination, and here we are. Democrats are going to make the midterms about Supreme Court vacancy, and they think that they can last through 2020. So they're not really pressing the issue as hard as what Republicans could. And knowing that if we want to get our guy in there, we're going to have to show up in midterms. They're going to have an adverse effect if they keep delaying this.
I've heard people say this. Jason here thinks that all of this is going to backfire on the Democrats and motivate Republicans to show up and vote, not just now, 2018, but again for Trump in 2020. Let's go to the audio sound bites on this. Jason, thank you much. We're going to start here. This is Fox and Friends Weekend on Saturday morning. Rachel Campos Duffy, who is one of the hosts, is talking to CBN political correspondent David Brody about all this. And she says, well, we know the Democrats already have been really energized about the midterms. I don't know how much more energized they could get. But I'm sensing that Republicans have become very energized this week. This hearing has really fired the Republicans up.
From my reporting and from that deplorable evangelical base, I can tell you they say the Democrats' dirty tricks have riled them up like never before. And I know Rush Limbaugh has talked about how if Kavanaugh is not confirmed, it's going to be real tough for the Republicans. Actually, if Kavanaugh is not confirmed, that would even rile up that deplorable evangelical base. And the GOP base, I believe even more, at least the people that I'm hearing from. And so, look, I think that's a big part of what's going on here.
Now, look, you can't blame David Brody for being 50% informed, because I pulled back that original prediction after it had gone viral all over the drive-by media. That's why it's still prominent in people's minds. And my retraction of that prediction has barely received a whimper, because it doesn't serve the drive-bys any good. When the drive-bys hear me predicting Republican doom, they can't help themselves. They got to put it all over the world in the media. Rush Limbaugh says Republicans guaranteed to lose House if Kavanaugh not confirmed. That prediction was based at a specific point in time on if the Republicans caved. If the Republicans didn't fight for Kavanaugh, if the Republicans just whimpered out, I predicted that would happen. But once this began to unfold, I retracted that prediction and said it could end up being the opposite here. But, of course, that prediction didn't go viral. And I want to, Jason in Muskegon, I want to thank you for bringing it up so that I could make the case. Here is one more bite on this. This is C-SPAN, Washington Journal, Saturday morning. Jess Holland is talking to a correspondent at the Weekly Standard, Andrew Egger, about me.
There's been several conservatives, including Rush Limbaugh, who've warned that Republicans could lose their majority if they don't get Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court. Is that something that Republicans in Congress are really thinking about, midterm consequences?
Arguments like the one that Limbaugh makes are a little convenient. Whether or not Kavanaugh gets through, I think this whole situation has really fired up Republican voters.
So once again, somebody else. You can't blame them, folks. Don't get mad at them, because my original prediction was everywhere. Literally all over the world. It was on Saudi TV. It was on the BBC. It was on Russian television. I think even the North Koreans, the little potbelly dictator, mentioned it in his Saturday night message to the people. It was everywhere. When Rush Limbaugh says Republicans are going to take it in the shorts, everybody in the media covers it. And I made that prediction at a time where it looked like they were getting ready to bail on the entire nomination. And when that didn't happen, when the Democrats went a couple of steps too far and caused the Republicans to engage them in this, then I revised the prediction. So I'm going to take a brief time out here. I've got the Trump sound bites from the press conference in the Rose Garden following his announcement of the NAFTA deal when the drive-by started querying him about Kavanaugh. You've got to hear these. So we'll do that, and then right after that, we'll get back to the phone. Welcome back, my friends. Rush Limbaugh and the execution of assigned host duties flawlessly with zero mistakes. And I'm going to make an executive programming format change. Rather than get to the Trump soundbites now, because I can't squeeze them all in here, we're going to get back to the phones. Now, people have been waiting patiently for a long time anyway. So we'll go back to Washington, D.C. Will, glad you called, sir. What's happening?
Thank you, Russ. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to get your thoughts on the ethical issues of the GoFundMe page. If you recall, during the Dr. Ford's testimony, the prosecutor asked her how she was paying for her legal fees and her security, and she mentioned her GoFundMe page. And those three pages have raised close to $1 million. And there has to be some kind of ethical issue. Like, you could just accuse somebody without any kind of corroborating evidence and then go public with that and raise, that amount of money is a very, very troubling thought. There's a lot of weird incentives there for people to make false accusations if they think they could raise a lot of money via crowdsourcing.
Look, this is a toughie. In a strict capitalist sense, she has identified a market, and that is there are deranged lunatics who want her to be right, who hope she's telling the truth. They want her to continue to speak and tell you the truth. They want her lawyers to continue to strategize and screw Kavanaugh. They're happy to pay for it. This is how they can be involved in politics beyond voting. They're more than happy to pay. It doesn't matter to them that she can afford her lawyers herself. It doesn't matter to them that her lawyers are working pro bono because this is a political case. So she's identified a market. There are people that want to support her with money. So she starts the GoFundMe page. I actually think somebody sent me a note today that GoFundMe is now a new money laundering, is essentially money laundering operation for the Democrats, much like the unions were. Because where's a lot of this money going to go? A lot of this money is going to go to these two lawyers who are then going to be, well, they're already involved in Democrat Party politics. So it's a new form of fundraising that's not called fundraising. This is made to look like people supporting a bedraggled and falsely accused, stressful, really in bad shape woman who can barely get through the hearing. Oh, I'm terrified. They're happy to help. And she's not the only one using it for this. There's a lot of Republicans or a lot of people who are using GoFundMe pages to raise money for their legal bills and other expenses. And if you can convince the American people to support you, well, I mean, I don't think there's anything immediate that could be done to stop it. And I don't think that you can draw any conclusions about her from it. In terms of whether she's being truthful or not. If you wanted to draw a conclusion that the GoFundMe page is a way to get Democrat suckers, i.e. voters, to pay for this so that it doesn't cost people who already have a lot of money anything, then you could try to make that point, that the Democrats are using these poor people. But I don't think you're going to be able to find a way to stop this. It's too widely used. Jeff in Sarasota, Florida. Hi, great to have you here, sir. What's up?
Hi, Rush. Just wanted to make a suggestion or an idea. It's kind of a fantasy. I don't think it would ever work, but, the left has always behaved like bullies, and they'll do anything, and they've never had real pushback from our representatives on the right in Washington. So, when you have no ethics and your dirty tactics pay off and they have benefits for you, coupled with the fact that, you never have to suffer those consequences in yourself, it's like a bully. There's no reason to stop. When your tactics work, there's no reason to stop.
Exactly.
And no bully has ever stopped until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
Well, maybe it's time that, we don't want to become them, but maybe let's say for a year, let's become them. Let's show them that anything destructive they can do to other human beings, it can be done.
Well, wait a minute. One thing, I reject this whole argument. I don't disagree with you. I reject this argument. We don't want to become them. Did we have to become Hitler to beat Hitler? Did we have to become the emperor to beat the Jap? No. We can beat Decency can beat these people. It's just that decent people are not conditioned and primed for it every day. When you're up against indecency, a lot of decent people don't know what to do about it. But Smash Mouth is right. Doing what they do, maybe it's time. By the way, folks, just taking a look here at the Fox Business channel. And they just ran a Chiron, little graphic at the bottom of the screen. This is the Fox Business channel, not the Fox News channel, although I'm sure it'll show up at some point. And the Chiron graphic says this: source to Fox, Kavanaugh FBI probe could be wrapped up by Tuesday. That's tomorrow. So Fox News is saying that the Kavanaugh FBI probe could be wrapped up by tomorrow. If it is, you can expect the Democrats to go ballistic. They're expecting at least a week. That's what Flake was assured. I don't know how. Fox is running it as a source they've got. There's nothing to find. The FBI has looked at Kavanaugh. This will be the 7th time, folks. Christine Ballsy Ford does not have any evidence for them to track down. She can't even tell them where to look. She can't tell them when to look unless she starts suddenly remembering it now. And I guess they would say that that's credible. The trauma has awakened repressed memories. I put nothing past them. But she can't remember when, not even the year. She's not even sure of the house and where it is. And by the way, how are you able to draw a floor plan of a house and not know where it was? She can't tell anybody how she got home. She can't tell anybody what she told anybody after this supposedly horrible event happened to her. Whatever else she is not credible. The FBI has looked into this guy. This is the 7th time. If he were a binge drinker as an adult and beating people up and sending them to jail, that would have been found long before now. So remember, none of this is about what it's about. This is about delay, 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 delay. That's all the Democrats want here. So whenever the FBI produces its results, and whatever the results are, the Democrats have an answer for it. If they exonerate Kavanaugh, the investigation was not thorough, that Trump told the FBI to overlook a bunch. They can accuse Trump, us, Kavanaugh of anything and be confident the media will carry the water of that allegation. If the FBI finds corroborating evidence, well, people are going to have to ask, well, how come you missed it 6 previous times over who knows how many years you've been looking into this guy? How could you find any evidence when she didn't tell you where to go look? Oh, well, and did you talk to Michael Avenatti? If the FBI didn't talk to his client and it didn't talk to... I'm telling you, no matter how this... If the FBI exonerates Kavanaugh, whenever they do it, do you really think the Democrats go, okay, fine, we got what we wanted, now we're prepared to go vote? You think that's going to be the result? It will not be. Now, folks, one other thing here. We just had a caller who said that we don't want to become them, but it's time to start playing this game the way they do. I made the point, you don't have to become them to beat them at this game. We didn't have to become Hitler to win World War II. We didn't have to become the Japanese emperor to win World War II in the Pacific Theater. That's always been a bogus... We cannot go after these people at the risk of becoming who they are. What a crock. That's nothing more than some limitation that's in utter denial of people who are already found to be of a fine character. You can enter into tough battles without losing your morality and your moral character and so forth. But as an example of how we almost do it now and then, but then we pull back. I called your attention last week to when Lindsey Graham unloaded on the Democrats. He unloaded on them. And he was 1,000% right in every allegation he made. A couple other Republicans echoed Graham, but with no passion and with no energy. They just echoed what Graham said intellectually. Now, according to our caller, that should have been the starting point. People should have been picked up on Graham's opener and run with it. And it should have become the daily identifier of the Republican Party. They should have been throwing back, firing back right at the Democrats in their faces every hour of every day, exactly what Graham did. Make that the ongoing battle. Put them on the defensive. Make the media repeat these charges that Graham laid out. But instead, it was a standalone. Graham said it. It was great. It was impassioned. And that was the end of it. It was never to be heard again out of the mouth of any Republican. And so Graham's impassioned allegation of the Democrats was followed by agreement with Jeff Flake's demand that the FBI be allowed to do one more week of investigation, thereby nullifying Senator Graham's point. And he even went along with Flake. You can't do these things as one-offs. If you're going to tell people who the Democrats are, if you're going to try to inform the country what's really going on here, you have to do it every day. And you're going to have to do it multiple times a day. It's going to have to become the central focus of your strategy on a day-to-day basis. But it never does. We've had plenty of occasions in the past where some Republicans done a one-off like that, and it's been great, and we have celebrated it, and we've cheered it, and we go, way to go, and it dies. Except for here on talk radio or maybe on Fox News. But it dies. Well, Lindsey Graham didn't have to become them to do what he did. He just had to be honest, and he was. Lindsey Graham didn't have to worry about losing his soul in order to take it to these people. And by the way, did you notice not a one of them on the Democrat side cared a whit about what Graham said? None of them even got mad at it. Not a single one of them even wanted to refute it. They didn't care. The only thing that got a rise out of them was when Feinstein was accused of leaking her letter. So she turned around and asked her staff, did you guys leak it? No, they said they didn't leak it, Mr. Chairman. We didn't leak it. I just asked my staff. They said they didn't. Oh, what about an investigation, huh? Well, Tom Cotton says we're going to investigate Feinstein and we're going to investigate some of these other things. That needs to be followed up on. There needs to be follow-through. But I, for one, I know investigations are necessary, but I'm getting tired of them because all they are is further delay. How hard is it to stand up and say Brett Kavanaugh is credible in his denial? Why is that so hard? She didn't have any evidence, but she made a credible witness. How? Well, she was really suffering and in pain. So? None of that establishes credibility. An attitude doesn't give us credibility. Pain and suffering doesn't equal credibility. Democrats are always in pain and suffering over something. Now, I want to go back to my prediction. My original prediction was that if the Republicans do not vote on this, if they don't vote out Kavanaugh in that committee, if he doesn't get voted on, if he's not confirmed, Republicans are going to have hell to pay because voters are going to be fit to be tied at being let down again. Then the Democrats kept pulling stunts, and it became conventional wisdom. If this keeps up, Republican voters are going to get so ticked off. Republican women and mothers are going to get so mad because they've got sons and they hate seeing what's happening to Kavanaugh. They don't want to imagine it happening to their own kid. They're going to show up in droves. Well, I want to take you into the future, and I want you to think about something. If Brett Kavanaugh, just think about this as a hypothetical. I'm not predicting it. If Brett Kavanaugh is not sworn in early next week, if you can hypothetically envision the day where Kavanaugh is not confirmed, not sworn in, are you going to be fit? Are you going to be so mad that you can't wait to vote? Are you going to be so mad that you feel betrayed? Because if that happens, take that moment where Kavanaugh is not sworn in, meaning he is not confirmed in the Senate, You think it's going to be easy for the Republicans to say, do you see what happened at Kavanaugh? We're in the majority and we couldn't get it confirmed. You need to come out and vote for us. How does that work? That's going to be pretty difficult. Asking Republicans to come out and vote to keep the majority when Kavanaugh is not sworn in. So everybody thinks that what voters are going to remember in November is this: the unfairness to Kavanaugh, the dirty tricks the Democrats are playing. But stop and think, Kavanaugh is not sworn in. And the Republicans think, wow, we're set up now, man. They're so mad out there. We're guaranteed to get their votes. There's going to be a Republican wave because of what happened to Kavanaugh. And then the Republicans start campaigning. And they start asking people to vote for them based on what happened to Kavanaugh. Oh, you mean that he's not there? You mean he didn't get sworn in? You're the majority. We know it's a very small majority, but you're the majority. And he's not sworn in. And you want us to. How does this work, folks? My point is, it's very easy to sit here and say in the midst of all this Democrat trickery that it's going to fire people up on the Republican side. They're going to be so ticked off and so mad they're going to show up and vote like they've never voted before. But is that going to be the attitude if he's not sworn in? Republicans have been asking for the majority for a long time. They keep working and voting, mostly because of Trump. Voters do. They keep showing up because of Trump. Trump alone will be able to make the case. Trump alone will be able to turn a Kavanaugh defeat into turnout. But the Republicans in the Senate and the House, I don't know how they do it. Vote for us, Kavanaugh was defeated. Vote for us so it doesn't happen to the next nominee. Is that really effective? See, I hear too many people talking about, it seems like every time you want a big turnout, we have to lose something so that people get fired up. I've been hearing this since I've been doing this show. Back in 1992, people called here and said, Rush, Clinton needs to win. Then people will see how bad the Democrats really are. People will see how skunks they really are. Say, are you kidding? We lose? And then tell ourselves we're going to win, and we're still doing it here with Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh doesn't make it. This is going to really fire people up. Why do we have to lose to fire up the base? That doesn't make any sense to me. It ought to be the other way around. This is another trick, I think, that gets played on Republicans. Your base is going to be really fired up if Kavanaugh doesn't make. Wait a minute. The Republicans are the majority. How in the hell is that advocacy for re-election or election, that the guy doesn't make it? Well, Rush, voters are going to be so mad. Yeah, at what? The guy got railroaded and our guys couldn't stop it, and we're supposed to say, well, okay, man, we're really loaded now. That's going to really cause the turn-up to spot. Sorry, folks, I don't think it works that way. What people in the hypothetical I just gave you, what's going to happen is that voters are going to be out there saying, even when we vote Republican, the Democrats still run the town. And it doesn't equal show up, keep electing. It's got to be the other way. Got to win this. We have got to beat the Democrats, not lose to them. And by the way, I've had a lot of emails from a lot of people who think they're expert political analysts. And they all, well, not all, but I mean a whole bunch of them have this theory that the way to get the base all fired, we want to let them destroy a great life, a great patriot, a great American, his whole career, his future, maybe his family, in order to win the midterms? How does that work? Your football team loses. Make you want to become a season ticket holder? Or is it when they win that you want on the bandwagon and you want to be on the team. Why do we have to keep losing to fire up our base? You talk about a trap. If you ask me, the media is behind that, the Democrats, the Washington establishment. I got to take a break. Be back after this. Don't go away. Okay, we're back. Rush Limbaugh emitting vocal vibrations, rhetoric, and resonance, coast to coast and border to border, on the most listened to radio talk show in many countries, not just this one. Okay, this is Sharon in Lititz, Pennsylvania. How do you pronounce where you are?
It's Lititz.
Lititz, good.
Yes, sir.
Good. What's happening?
Hi, Rush. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
I've been curious since about the beginning of this year, several times you mentioned that an incident or an occurrence has yet to happen that will affect or seriously affect the midterms. I was curious to hear if you think this Kavanaugh nomination that's gone sour is that incident.
Well, it could be. I mean, but the point was, I didn't have anything specific in mind. It's just that we get a poll in June or a poll in May or even July, and it tells us what the public is thinking of doing in the November elections. And my point was, this is silly. This poll doesn't mean anything. Does anybody remember the poll in July of 2016 or in August? It doesn't mean anything because it's not when the election is. And I said the events are going to shape the midterms haven't happened yet. I said that in July, August, September. And this is exactly the kind of thing I had in mind. But there's going to be something beyond this.
Oh, dear.
This is going to get resolved one way or the other, depending on how it's resolved. Yeah, it's going to affect turnout. It's going to affect votes. If the Democrats lose this, if Kavanaugh gets confirmed, then what are Democrat voters going to do? They're just going to be really enraged and show up and vote. Are they going to be mad, depressed, and sit home? Who knows? But this thing is going to get if this is not resolved before the election, then it's a defeat anyway, because all the Democrats want here is delay, delay, delay. But my only point was that those polls in the summer are largely irrelevant because there are things that are going to happen much closer to the election nobody can predict that are going to have a great impact on it. This is one of those things, yes, but I don't know if it's the final one. For example, who would have predicted back in July or August that we'd be done with NAFTA, we'd have a brand new trade deal that gets rid of the horrible aspects of NAFTA and have a new trade deal that's pro-America? And then after that, how many people think that that is instrumental in vote turnout? What do you think? All right, Jeff Flake is on television in Boston right now talking about his decision to seek another FBI investigation. And I have some questions about things that he's saying. Greetings and welcome back. Great to have you. 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the Trump soundbites are coming up. Hang on. Jeff Flake, there's an audience there. I don't know what this event looks like. I thought I saw banners in the background said Forbes. No, I don't know what this is. It doesn't matter. Flake said, the reason I supported an FBI investigation is good for everybody. We need more information, not less. We do not have a shortage of information. I can blow up, I can nuclearize everything they say that they think substantiates and backs up more investigation. How much more is necessary? Why didn't they do this when Feinstein got the letter? Why did they hold this in reserve? She doesn't have anything to tell anybody unless she now commits perjury. She doesn't know where. She doesn't know when. The people she says were in the room all deny it. What is there to investigate? What more is there to learn? Kavanaugh's a drunk. Oh, 6 FBI investigations haven't shown that? Kavanaugh, he's not got the right judicial temperament. Look at the way he behaved at the committee. What about the years he served as a judge? Why don't you look at that? Instead of the guy naturally, properly outraged at being destroyed by the Democrat Party. His attitude made perfect sense. More information is better than less. Nobody's talking about less information here. Nobody's trying to suppress information here. Nobody's been trying to suppress anything. Kavanaugh has answered more questions, more written questions, than all Supreme Court nominees combined. There is not a shortage of information. There has not been a short shrifting of any investigation. But there's another thing, maybe not the thing, but this is another thing that really grates on me. Jeff Flake just said, and he's not the only one, there are a lot of people saying this, after Christine Ballsy Ford's credible testimony, I'm getting calls from women all over America who've been inspired to come forward because of her brave and courageous testimony. Well, now, wait a minute. Didn't Anita Hill cause women to come forward in droves? And what about the Me Too movement itself? Didn't Harvey Weinstein cause women to start calling in and coming through in droves saying, yes, it's happened to me? And then every other person named, Matt Lauer, Les Moonves, NBC, CBS, all of these Me Too guys that have been named and called out. Why didn't that inspire women all over America to call Congress and say, yeah, it happened to me too? In other words, they're asking us to believe that women are out there suffering alone, suffering in private, suffering in anonymity. And it was Christine Ballsy Ford and her testimony which is causing women to call Congress in droves. Well, what have women been doing all during the Me Too movement? Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying that she's a late arrival to this. The idea of men abusing women and the Me Too movement. I mean, the truthful stories of it. Don't misunderstand me here. She's by no means the first. Women have been coming out of the woodwork claiming Hollywood this, Hollywood that abused me. This guy mistreated me, raped me, whatever. How about the University of Virginia Rolling Stone story? How about Lena Dunham talking about all the horrible things that have happened to her? Haven't all of these stories caused women to feel newly emancipated to come forward with their stories? And yet, on the tail end of the Me Too movement, after Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill, and so forth, Christine Ballsy Ford goes and testifies, and Flake says, and I'm hearing from so many women who are saying, well, no, my point is that I think anybody can say that, but we don't know who's calling these people, and we don't even know if the people calling him are not Democrat activists to begin with, just to create the phone traffic. My contention to you is that the Me Too movement alone has no doubt inspired a lot of women to courageously step up and accuse guys that have mistreated them. It's not a new phenomenon. It's not something for which she deserves all kinds of credit, because this is at the tail end of this new awareness and sensitivity. And yet, it's being spoken of. Christine Ballsy Ford's testimony and her inspiration is being spoken of as though it's a standalone and it's never happened before. And that adds to her credibility, don't you see? And I think we're all being played. Oh, yeah, I do. No, I'm not saying women aren't coming forward. I'm saying it's not a new thing that they are. Believe me, go ask Harvey Weinstein, go ask Matt Lauer, and go talk to Les Moonves and ask them if they think that there's something relatively new here that started happening because of Christine Ford. It isn't. It's all part of the plan to make this particular incident revolutionary, new, and so important, because this brave, courageous woman is causing other women to be brave in ways they've never felt like being before. And I think that's not right. I think the sensitivity, the consciousness raising has been going on since Weinstein or even before that. But every time there's a public incident like this involving male abuse or alleged male abuse, part and parcel of it, and I'm hearing from women all over America who are so thankful to Dr. Ford because she has given me the courage to... Did the Me Too movement not work on them? Did the Me Too movement not give them courage? Just think we're being played here, folks. And, of course, it gives Flake cover for what he's done. He's making himself out to be a hero. Yeah, we need more information. We need more. Yeah, what's wrong with more information? What's wrong with more information is not the question. Why do we need to give the Democrats more time to make up a bunch of other information? Ought to be the suspicion here. Okay, to the Trump sound bites. These are from the Oval Office. It was during a announcement ceremony for a new trade deal, eliminating NAFTA, getting rid of it, brand new trade deal. The drive-bys were under orders not to ask questions about Kavanaugh, which meant they asked questions about Kavanaugh. And Trump, after making sure enough time was spent on NAFTA, started entertaining the questions. And we have 1, 2, 3, we got 4 of them here. And here is Trump. This is not actually in response to a question. He's just riffing here during the ceremony, talking about the midterm election, fake news, Kavanaugh things.
We have Senate races that weren't even in play 6 months ago. As you know, there are a lot of them are repression polls or polls that aren't very accurate. We had areas and we had congressional seats, too, where I know it's going to be a positive outcome. But you look at what's going on, and it doesn't seem to be broadcast that way. But I certainly had that with my election. They were telling me I was, in trouble in certain states that I end up winning like in a landslide. And I knew I was going to win them in a landslide, but they wouldn't report it that way. You know why? Fake news.
Now, during the Q&A, Cecilia Vega, ABC News White House correspondent, said, in a tweet this weekend, you said it's incorrect to say that you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation into Kavanaugh. But your own statement on Friday made it very clear. You said this investigation must be limited in scope. So which is it?
This is our 7th investigation of a man who has really, you look at his life until this happened. What a change he's gone through. What his family's gone through. The trauma. For a man that's never had any accusation, he's never had a bad statement about him. I think he was number 1 in his class at Yale. He was number 1 in his law school at Yale. And then what he's gone through over the last 3 weeks is incredible. So I want the FBI, this is now their 7th investigation. So it's not like they're, just starting. I want them to do a very comprehensive investigation.
Let me explain that answer. And let me these sound bites have got to be, number 30 coming up. Okay. When this whole FBI investigation started, everybody knows we heard Flake demand a week for his vote. 1 week. So that's how the committee vote ended. 11-10 in favor of Kavanaugh, with the proviso that Flake was not going to vote on the floor vote for final confirmation till the FBI had spent at least another week looking into this. So that NBC runs a story out of nowhere, fake news, claiming that the White House intends to limit the scope of the FBI. It was a setup. It was a trap. They laid a trap. NBC News, which is complicit with the Democrat Party in most things, laid a trap accusing Trump and the White House of trying to limit the FBI scope. Because, you see, there are things to find, and Trump wants to cover it up. Donald Trump, who's had so much control over the FBI the last 3 years. Same FBI that's been doing its level best to get Donald Trump thrown out of office. Somehow, Donald Trump has been able to walk in there and tell those guys to limit the scope of their investigation. So Trump, I'm not limiting the scope of anything. I've told the FBI to look at whatever they need to look at. Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. So if it needs to go 2 weeks, it can go 2 weeks. So the White House has now claimed there aren't any limitations. See how this works? It was a trap. It was a setup. And Trump tweeted out, he's not limiting the scope. NBC is lying. Of course they're lying. It was a setup. And so now it's out there that a week may not be enough. Now Fox News is reporting, along with Fox Business News, that the FBI is saying they might have this wrapped up tomorrow. But then the question becomes, well, what to do with that? If the FBI has finished talking to everybody they need to talk to, then what do the Republicans do with that? Do they hold on to it till Friday, or do they move on it? Well, I'll just tell you, if this ends tomorrow, if this is all accurate, and the Democrats here, but the Democrats are going to be fit to be tied that this thing didn't go on till Friday, and they're going to demand, they're going to start saying that this thing is rigged. They knew it was going to be rigged, and they're going to demand even more time to fix the fact that it was rigged. They're going to do that anyway. They're not going to let this thing end on Friday. If we let them have their way, this investigation isn't going to end on Friday. It won't be long enough. Besides, Trump said he's not going to have any limit on the FBI, so why are they stopping now? It isn't possible. They could have found everything there is to find on this, they will say. To which the response is, well, they found nothing in 100,000 or more Hillary emails in a couple days. Let's see. Let's skip forward here to audio soundbite number 30. Reporter about Judge Kavanaugh. There are concerns that might have lied or mischaracterized his drinking while he was testifying. If they find that Kavanaugh lied about his drinking, or if he lied about other things, do you think that that bars him from being your nominee to the Supreme Court?
I was surprised at how vocal he was about the fact that he likes beer. And he's had a little bit of difficulty. I mean, he talked about things that happened when he drank. This is not a man that said that alcohol was absent, that he was perfect with respect to alcohol. Look at some of these people asking the questions, okay? Look at Blumenthal. He lied about Vietnam. He didn't just say, hey, I went to Vietnam. No. For 15 years, he said he was a war hero. He fought in Da Nang province. We call him Da Nang Richard. Da Nang. That's his nickname. Da Nang. He never went to Vietnam. Take a look at Cory Booker. He ran Newark, New Jersey into the ground. He was a horrible mayor. And he made statements that when he was in high school or college, what he was doing, he actually made the statements. And now he's talking about Judge Kavanaugh. And I could go through a whole list of them, okay? Look at Dianne Feinstein.
And he starts talking about Feinstein with the Chinese spy on her staff for 20 years. And then he tells the story about how Dianne Feinstein assured everybody that her staff didn't leak the Ballsy Ford letter, because right there in the middle of the hearing, she turned around and asked him. Camera was on her, and she turned around. Did you leak? Did you leak? Did you leak it? Mr. Chairman, my staff tells me that we didn't leak it. I didn't leak it, and my staff says they didn't. So, no, Mr. We didn't. Oh, that's that. Just like Kavanaugh said, he didn't do what she says. But no, that's not good enough. You need the FBI. You need everything you can get to find out if Kavanaugh's lying. But we're just supposed to sit there and accept that you say and your staff say in a period of 5 to 10 seconds that you didn't leak it. And that's that. And Trump is so right about Richard Blumenthal. This guy, folks, this is why, I don't understand Democrat voters. It can't be on substance. This guy lied. He claimed for 15 years he was a medal-winning war hero, served with valor in Vietnam. He'd never been there. He had to call a press conference with tears to explain why and what happened. There is not a single Republican alive the media would allow to survive a transgression like that. Ann Coulter She's got a really funny column, really great column. All the Democrats and media are saying, well, you can't have 11 old white guys on that committee asking her questions and judging her. You can't have that. So she said, okay, if you don't like the 11 old white guys, how about if we have Al Sharpton come in and ask questions? Al Sharpton of Tawana Brawley fame. How about we get Bill Cosby in there? Get another African-American. How about Keith Ellison? Get a Democrat. Black guy, Democrat, got his own sexual harassment problems. How about Alton Maddox, attorney for black youth hired by a Jewish landlord? How about she goes through a list of Latinos, Native Americans, and African Americans who have abused women. Let's have them come in and ask the questions if these 11 white guys are incapable of it. Really smart. I got to take a break. We'll be back. Well, Jeff Flake just lost. It's the Forbes Something for Under 30 Summit meeting. It's in Boston. And he just lost it. He said, I'm a man without a country. I can't support Donald Trump. I can't vote for Donald Trump. Look what he said about John McCain. Look what he said about Mexicans. I can't And that's what this is all about. Like I said in the first hour of this program, this really, when you strip this down to what it's really about, it's not about Kavanaugh. And that makes this an even bigger shame because he's going to be destroyed as the Democrats attempt to get rid of Trump. That's what this all is. And the reason they targeted Flake is because they know that Flake hates Trump. Flake can't get reelected in Arizona because of Trump. Flake despises Trump. He has for I don't know how long. He is eager to screw Trump while making it look like that he is standing in solidarity with the abused women of America. But that's not what this is about. From the Democrats to Flake to the media, this is about raw hatred of Donald Trump and making sure he is denied this court seat or any other court seat and making sure that Trump doesn't get anything substantively done. This is about getting rid of Donald Trump. This is about making sure that Trump is paralyzed in his administration following the midterms in November. If anything ought to be inspiring Republicans to vote, it is that. It is that the Democrats and the Republican conservative never-Trumpers are trying to destroy the presidency that was duly elected by the people in 2016. That's what needs to be used to generate turnout for Republicans, House candidates, Senate candidates, and all over the country in November. Because that's what this really is. And Kavanaugh is caught in this crossfire. Make no mistake, I mean, they're happy to take him out because of who he is and what he represents. But it's Trump they're aiming at. So I just took a look here at the Drudge Report during the break, and what do I see? What is the lead headline on the Drudge Report? Well, let me read it to you. White House expands FBI probe. So what the hell is that? So I clicked on the link. Here's what it is. Right here, my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, New York Times, working in tandem with NBC News. Headline, White House tells FBI to interview anyone necessary for Kavanaugh inquiry. This is because of what they claim Trump said at his press conference today, where I don't want to limit anything. I said, they run a fake news story, NBC does, claiming Trump is limiting the investigations. I'm not. That's fake news. So then they've got it on record, Trump not limiting investigation, which means it can go on and on and on and on. And now they're broadcasting it everywhere. White House tells FBI interview anyone necessary. And right on schedule, CNN reports that the Democrats have submitted a list of 24 people they want the FBI to talk to. This after Fox News had it earlier today that the FBI is about to wrap up tomorrow. This is going to have to be shut down at some point. This cannot go on. All this is delay. And I'm going to tell you what needs to happen. There is an assumption operating out there that needs to be shut down. And that assumption is that the investigation that has taken place since Kavanaugh was named is somehow insufficient. as somehow incomplete. Somebody needs to stand up and say it's the exact opposite, that this is the seventh. Now, Trump has, but somebody besides him needs to make the point that this has been a thorough investigation, that every last-minute jack-in-the-box that's popped up here has been looked into, and the effort has been made. But there's only so much you can do with a woman who doesn't remember where or when whatever happened to her happened. And there's only so much you can do when the people in the room she says were there claim they weren't. This investigation, somebody needs to stand up and vouch for it. Somebody needs to stand up and promote it. It needs to be spoken for. This has got to be stopped because it's not real. The Democrats are allowed to make it up as they go. Submit names they want the FBI to talk to. They've done it. Investigations don't work that way. FBI follows evidence, leads, and when they don't find anything, unlike Bob Mueller, they stop. Mueller's been looking for collusion with Trump and Russia for 2 years and hasn't found any, but he's still going, and that's exactly what this is going to be if somebody doesn't stand up and stop this. Somebody on the Senate Judiciary Committee needs to stand up, or Mitch McConnell needs to stand up and start vouching for the investigation that's taken place. There are 6 separate FBI background checks of Brett Kavanaugh. Somebody needs to speak up for him. Somebody needs to vouch for him. Somebody needs to stand up and say they have been thorough and they haven't found anything, or he wouldn't be where he is now, sitting on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. But that's not happening. Somehow we're letting the media get away with the idea that the investigation here into Kavanaugh has been half-baked, lukewarm, and incompetent because of Christine Ballsy Ford coming around at the last minute with no evidence, no corroboration, and nothing. Yet she's credible. Kavanaugh's not. Somebody, look, we had a caller earlier. How do you stop a bully? You smack him in the face. Somebody needs to stand up and tell the Democrats to shut the hell up, that they've gotten everything they've asked for in this thing and there just isn't anything there, and to go home. The idea this investigation is not thorough, is incompetent, is incomplete, or has been rigged is absolutely bogus. Now, they're making things up that Trump is going to limit it. He did no such thing, but he sure fell for the bait. I am not limiting anything. I have told the FBI to take this wherever it takes them. Promptly, Democrats. Well, here's 21 people we want you to talk to. If you called the FBI and say, hey, look, there's some people in my town here really screwing the pooch, and I need to get something done about it. And here's the, well, you go talk to them. It doesn't work that way, does it? But Rush, this is the United States Senate. Clearly they can have it. No, it's not. And one other thing. You know, one of the movies I have recommended over the years that people rent, if they haven't seen it, go watch it. It's called The Lives of Others. And it's a movie about East Germany during the Cold War. Essentially, how the government literally spied on every citizen. The German chancellor at the time was Erich Honecker. He's the guy that, drugged the East German women, Olympic teams. Anyway, it's a frightening movie in terms of what gigantic police state with the ability and power to spy on people creates. Well, I have here a tweet from none other than Jane Mayer, who's done her level best to destroy Clarence Thomas, writing books about the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas thing. She tried to blame the TV show 24 for torture at Abu Ghraib and Club Gitmo. She blamed a TV show for inspiring torture in the United States military. And Now, instead of the lives of others, now we're going to weaponize college friendships. Here is her tweet. If you knew Brett Kavanaugh at Yale and have any relevant information about him, please send a text to the New Yorker's Jane Mayer 77 because she's a Yale graduate in 1977, and their phone number here. Please share. So she's out soliciting from anybody who could. Yeah, I knew Kavanaugh. I saw Kavanaugh. I didn't know him, but I saw Kavanaugh. He could barely stand up. Every Friday, this guy was beating people up, and they were going to the hospital. You saw that? Yes, I did. I saw that. Doesn't need to be true. She just needs to be able to say somebody told her. Oops, we got another allegation, and we got to track down. This is how this is all until somebody stands up and says this is it, and starts vouching for the investigation that's taken place. Isn't that what Rosenstein and McCabe and Strzok and Mueller and all these people, aren't they out there vouching for their investigation into Trump? Isn't the media telling us every day it's thorough and it's continuing to look and all this sort of stuff? We're not allowed to think that investigation's flawed in any way. But this one? Yeah, this is all rigged. Yeah, they're ignoring things. They don't care to find out what happened to Christine Ford. BS. Here's Christy in Durant, Iowa. Great to have you as we head back to the phones. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm so excited I get to talk to you.
Thank you.
We are being played, Rush, and I don't know if anybody has brought this up or not, but I've been thinking about this forever and ever. And I'm so glad I got to ask you about it, just in case you have brought it up. But has anybody ever thought that the reason she looked so credible, because she was so emotional and, whimpering and nearly jumping out of her skin, is because she freaking went on national TV and was convinced to go on national TV to continue a lie that is this horrible? Have you ever had someone lie to you and they're kind of a little nervous and shaky? So if I went on TV...
See, that's exactly what
hero for the They Knew movement, as Tommy Lauren calls it, and then you finally get there and you're like, she's smart enough to know that all the people she's looking at know that this is not true.
What you are doing is understandable. You're putting yourself in her position and wondering how you would be. And you'd be terrified. You'd be scared to death, and you might betray that. Your voice might be shaky, and you might be forgetful, and you might be nervous and jittery and so forth. For people untrained in this kind of thing, yeah, but I don't buy that that's who she is for a minute. I think this was rehearsed and scripted. She knew what she was going to say and so forth. I think it was practiced. She's from Santa Cruz. These people are left-wing activists. Now, I don't want to appear to just out of hand reject your theory. I need to ask you a question. Honestly, there's no wrong answer here. Do not misinterpret any tone in my voice. I'm actually asking for you to help me. Was she credible to you because of her demeanor and her voice and her upspeaking technique and her apparent nervousness? Did she come across as credible to you? Believable?
No, that's exactly what I just said. She came across as someone who was sitting in front of a bunch of people telling a lie. And the reason why she was able to be whimpering and shaky and nervous and look like someone who had been raped is because she knew she was lying on national TV.
Okay, I heard that. I thought you said the reason she comes across as credible is because she is that people identify with suffering and pain and all that. But
she's whimpering and scared out of her mind because of what she's doing.
Well,
and she was convinced to do something really stupid.
She'd have to have a conscience for that. Do you think leftists can't survive with consciences? Look, she is willingly, and not just following, she is leading now an effort to literally destroy another human being. His life's work, his family, his past, and his future. You got to have no conscience to be doing that. And her description of what happened to her, well, I couldn't do what she's doing, but not because I'd be nervous, because I couldn't live with the guilt. If I were participating in an effort that had an entire political party depending on me to pull it off, to destroy another human being, if it weren't true, I couldn't do it. And I don't think they have any problem doing it. I mean, they are trained. They are trained in this kind of political tactic. That's what being a leftist is. They are not docile like you and I and living their lives, and politics happens to be a part of it. Politics is everything. It is their identity. And to come forward with a story like this, to know that you can't offer corroboration or proof, you've got to be really certain that nothing's going to happen to you. You got to be certain that the party is going to protect you, that your lawyers are going to protect you. You got to be certain the Republicans aren't going to do anything to you. And how do you do that? You appear to be a woman in distress who has been abused and so forth. And since everybody knows Republicans hate women and have been having a war on women, you can be assured the Republicans aren't going to lay a glove on you. They're not even going to try. But at the end of all, what have you done? You have destroyed the life, the achievements, the future, and the family of a fellow human being. It's about time people learned what we're up against and who these people are, and what it's not learning what they're capable of, it's admitting it, because it's happening way, way too often. I have to take a break. I appreciate the call. Thank you, Il Mucho. We'll be back here before you know it. And there's one other thing today that has been bothering me ever since I saw it. And that is this report first on the Fox Business Channel and then Fox News that the FBI says that they're about ready to wrap up their investigation, may have it wrapped up tomorrow. Folks, the FBI would never say this.